Hey, it's Jeff here, Jeff Nail, and I figure since we aren't doing coffee, I bring the coffee to you. I wrote that down yesterday, and I was like, man, that's a nice little catchphrase. But I'm glad I entertained myself. Hopefully, I entertain you. But if nobody else, I give myself a good chuckle. I posted a quote today, and I'm gonna steal a little, or not steal a little bit, but cheat a little bit, if you will, because I typically don't read anything, but I wanted to make sure that I got this quote. It says, "If you take more than you give, you get less of what you can take." Man, poetry snaps. Stephen Acheson, and I hope I'm saying that right. But anyway, you can go to my public page if you want to get that, because it's posted as of this morning, early. So what does that quote mean, man? If you take more than you give, you get less of what you can take. I feel like with the way the world is right now, where entrepreneurism is and no statistics to back me, but entrepreneurism is at an all-time high. 1099 contract work is at an all-time high. Network marketing is at an all-time high. And I feel as if a lot of these industries, a lot of these people who are taking on these opportunities are not necessarily trained in relationship building. And I think that we've turned a lot of our interactions into business interactions, and like we don't necessarily build relationships in the most positive way, if you will. And take this with a grain of salt, but because I know that it's important to make a livelihood and be successful and so on and so forth, but at what cost? So with this quote, I interpret this quote as, I immediately look at it like the news feed. We see it every day. Somebody gets, is in a new endeavor, and it's immediately like ground and pound, to borrow a football term, in terms of just advertising. It's like, hey, I do this. 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 And while the law of large numbers works, how I think over time you're thinning your market, so to speak, because a lot of people, before you build up your passion, will lose interest in your message. And over time, while you may be fishing from this pond and gaining fish, some fish may have found a way out and they're on to the next one. That wasn't the best analogy, but you get it. And I think that goes with everything. Like, so not even business, but if you, like in a friendship, if you take more than you give, like you're in essence watering down the relationship. You're adding, you have this great masterpiece that you've made in the kitchen. It's seasoned to perfection. It tastes good. And then somebody just comes and pours water on it. It doesn't necessarily ruin the dish, but all that seasoning is now displaced. And I feel as if we have to get a little bit better with giving more than we get. Yeah, that's right. I had to think about that. But yeah, I mean, even in like some of these groups, these Facebook groups and whatnot, how often are you looking to help others versus just helping yourself? Rhetorical question, but feel free to add some comments. And that goes again, and I mentioned business and your personal life, because in situations where you're always calling somebody or reaching out to somebody for your own personal gain or your own personal need. I mean, like, that begins, whether we like it or not, that begins to be tallied, and people begin to make assumptions and whatnot. I shared recently, there's an old fable. I'm sure many of you may be used to it, The Boy Who Cried Wolf. And it's a fable that kind of talks about lying. Like the boy, he was a sheep herder, and he cried wolf. He called wolf, wolf, and everybody came, and there was no wolf. And they said, like, hey, don't do that. Only call wolf when it's a wolf here. Like, we're trying to protect you and protect the sheep. And he did it again, and he did it again, and then he did it, and then a wolf really showed up, and he cried wolf, and nobody came because they thought he was lying. But I feel like that parable goes much further than lying. It goes into people creating an autopilot, if you will, for your thoughts and your behaviors. If you are very predictable in your actions and reactions, potentially selfish or potentially overbearing, so on and so forth, people begin to assume that, and you can rest assured that you will fall into that parable of the boy who cried wolf, because people will stop waiting for your answer or waiting for your actions because they believe they already know what you're going to say and do. And I think that is ever important in personal relationships and business relationships. Do you have a balance that not only brings you benefit, but it brings others benefit, truly. And I know we can like spin most things to say like, hey, I'm bringing these people benefits, but I'm talking about, so it goes into the book Chapman, Rex Chapman, The 5 Love Languages. And if you're speaking a different love language than the person you're talking to, it's almost as if nothing is being said. So I don't know, like, if you're not familiar with the love languages, I'm not going to go into too deep into that. But so one of the love languages is acts of service. I do things for someone, personal or business. I run, I get the mail every day, or I take out the trash every day, or I send out all the correspondence every day, or I make the coffee at the office every day. Those are acts of service. And if someone's love language per se isn't acts of service, they don't even recognize that you're doing something nice for them. They might not be as appreciative because their love language is quality time. So they want to have a conversation. They don't want you to just like make the coffee and run away, or take out the trash and run away. They want to have a conversation with you and, ask you how your day was. You ask them how their day was. So that's the synopsis of it. So if these two individuals, acts of service and quality time, are having conversations, and they're just drowning someone in acts of service, and they're like, man, I don't need all that. Like, just have a conversation with me. So, and the person with the conversation, they're just like talk. And the person's like, man, like, they're always talking. Like, I don't want to, don't give me all that conversation. Like, we got work to do, or like I got things, you know, we got other things that I want to do. And, you know, that's where the confusion lies. You know, and the book is all about, you know, finding your love language and meeting someone, you know, at their love language. But I think that it's just like needed communication. I think we can all benefit from better communication, no matter how good you are at it. I think communication is key, and vulnerable communication. You know, you want to sit down and talk about, you know, hey, Jeff, you've been taking out the trash and making coffee every day. Thanks. But I don't care about that. You know, and I'm not saying say it that harsh, but, you know, you want to have conversations about, you know, what's working and what's not. And that's the way to more positive interactions and potentially deeper and better relationships. If you want to talk about any specific topics moving forward, you know, leave some comments. But I'm going to keep doing this because I enjoy it. We'll talk soon. Appreciate you doing it in. Have a great day.